Musicals and me? Are you kidding me? Another gay guy talking about musicals this time of year? Well, there isn't that much to talk about it. Except I love it. And I wanted to dedicate a video completely to musicals because I wanted to try and mix things up with my kind of content. So let's dive into it. This is Musical Life. So the first one we are talking about is The Phantom of the Opera. Now, I got introduced to this back in 2005, maybe, when the movie The Phantom of the Opera came out. You know, the one with Emmy Rossum and Gerard Butler, I think his name is. That was my first introduction to, The Phantom of the Opera, and I fell in love with it. Who doesn't? It's so beautifully created, and the cinematic of it was pretty good. However, it wasn't until 2015 that I got my first taste of the original show, the original musical show, where Andrew Lloyd Webber, I think it was his 25th anniversary of The Phantom of the Opera. Now, I found it on iTunes actually, and I watched that. So that was a recording of a live show, which is most of the things I'm going to talk about today. But it was my first introduction to the actual show, and I just fell in love with it. It was so beautifully done, and it introduced me to one of my favorite Broadway actresses now, Sierra Bourgues, I think it's how you pronounce her name. I've been in love with it, but the reason why I love it is the music is so beautiful. So the music itself is written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and he has written some of the most culturally known musicals, like Jesus Christ Superstar, Cats, The Phantom of the Opera. It really did put him on the map. Now, his music is really beautifully done, and I just love a lot of the melodies. One of my favorite songs from the entire musical is Wishing You Were Somewhere Here, I think it's called. And it's so beautiful. And especially the live broadcast of the 25th anniversary, or 22nd, or 20th, and it's an anniversary production. And it's just so goddamn beautiful. It really highlighted a lot of the things that the movie couldn't highlight. Now, it's very beautifully done. It did create this amazing atmosphere in that theater. And since it's an anniversary edition of Phantom of the Opera, there was, of course, the end of it, which was very celebratory of Andrew Lloyd Webber, since he's the creator behind it. Now, my personal involvement in it, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. There isn't a lot of musicals like it. Now, it did get a sequel, I believe in 2009. It got a continuation called Love Never Dies. But that's Phantom of the Opera. Now, the next one that we are going to talk about is the amazing Legally Blonde, the musical. Now, I was a fan of the original movie starring Reese Witherspoon. That's pretty good. I first saw that on YouTube. I actually discovered the whole production from MTV's recordings of the live show, and it was incredible. The songs, iconic. There's so many of them that I still listen to. I have the album downloaded on my Apple Music, so that's pretty amazing. Together with the lead of that show, the original Broadway production, Laura Bell Bundy, she's just incredible. Her comedic talent and her comedic timing especially, it's so phenomenal. There isn't much that she doesn't do that is bad in that show. She does phenomenally. Saturday or Sunday, I actually rewatched that entire show, and the good thing about the version that I found on YouTube was that it had the songs, had the lyrics actually put on screen so you guys can follow along, you could sing along to it. So that was pretty amazing and pretty fun too. To mention it once again, Laura Bell Bundy, amazing Elwoods. So now let's move into a little bit of a different one. It's not in English. It does have a few years on it now, but it is still goddamn good. I'm of course talking about Tanz der Vampire. This is a German musical that did try its run on Broadway in America. Dance of the Vampires, that did not go well. But the German version of it, hilarious, amazing. Now, I've watched this so many times. So the musical itself, it's pretty fantastic. So what it is about a professor and his apprentice known as Professor Broncius and Alfred, his assistant. They travel to Transylvania and are stuck in this little inn with an innkeeper and his wife and his beautiful daughter, Sarah. Now, Alfred and Sarah fall in love because of a bathtub. Because of a bath. And Sarah's beautiful, Alfred is a virgin, so he's like, oh my god, she's beautiful. Basic. And also within that territory is a vampire known as Count von Krolak. Now he hears and sees Sarah, or technically a servantess, and tells him about it, and he just goes, wow, she's pretty. Yeah, I'm gonna bite her, I'm gonna turn her. So that's the premises of that. Count von Krolak kidnaps Sarah, Professor Broncius and Alfred go to the castle, try to save Sarah. Sarah gets bitten, blah blah blah. It ends in a bloodbath, with Professor Broncius actually surviving and most of the other characters don't. So that's a spoiler for you if you haven't watched it. But there's a whole lot more to it, so I do encourage you to actually see it. Now with this, I did also find it on YouTube, but I did have a chance to actually watch it a few years ago. I didn't, but I had the option. I just didn't. Now, I have it saved on my YouTube because it was recorded, and I think it's the 2003 Hamburg edition of it. And everyone in it sounds beautiful, it looks beautiful, the production is fantastic. Now, the costumes really do help place the audience into the setting of Transylvania during I believe the 17th or 18th century. For that, I just have to love it. So that's the reason why it's one of my favorites. Plus the music is brilliant, the acting is done fantastically in it, and I just really love vampires. I love vampires, and this is no exception. Now, you can't talk about musicals without going into a classic like Hairspray. You really can't. Hairspray, for those of you who don't know it, how do you not know it? Have you been living under a rock? Everyone knows Hairspray. And if you don't know Hairspray, you're either completely lost in the world of culture, music, theater. It is a little bit about fat shaming, and it is about racial segregation. Two very big topics that this musical actually touches upon. Now, Tracy Turnblad, who is the main protagonist of this show, is a large girl, a big girl, a thick girl, white, and she has this show that she loves to watch, the Corny Collins show, and she wants to be on it. So when there's auditions, she auditions, but she gets told not to because she's fat, and that is not pleasing to a television screen in the 1960s. But Tracy still does it, and she makes it on the show. There's a few trials and tribulations among that, but she does make it onto the show, because this takes place in the 1960s, Baltimore, Maryland in the 1960s. A heavily racial segregated area, if memory serves me well. The reason this is also important is because it does center around Tracy feeling like an outsider, and where the Black community has felt like an outsider for many years. Tracy kind of finds companions and kind of comrades within the Black community. Now, I first watched this as the movie version of it from 2007. The story is about these kind of outsiders versus insiders, in a point where the insiders are the beautiful white community, where the outsiders are both fat people and Black people. And it's about overcoming obstacles in the 1960s movement of liberation. So with that in mind, it does something to one when you watch it, especially if you're considered an outsider on your own. Me being gay, and predominantly we live in a heteronormative society, it creates this beautiful movement where you can see just because you're an outsider, just because you're different, it doesn't mean that you're worse and that you're not worth the attention that everyone else gets. So that's one of the reasons why I am so heavily in love with this musical. The final on this of my favorite musicals that I've watched is Wicked. Wicked has to be a part of anyone's top musicals ever. The reason for that is Wicked is so fantastic. If you don't know it, it's based around around the movie The Wizard of Oz. If you know what that is. If you don't, what happened to you? How do you not know The Wizard of Oz? But it's centered around the story concerning the Wicked Witch of the West. It's a beautiful story with some of the most amazing music I have ever heard in a musical. There's so many of the songs that are so phenomenally, and the actresses that has played Elphaba, but not just Elphaba, but also Glinda. These two characters and the actresses that have portrayed them over the years are phenomenal. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I do have my favorites among them. I think one of them name is Donna Vivino, and Jessica Vosk is one of them, Shoshana Bean. Huge names within the musical world, especially on Broadway. Like, huge names have portrayed Elphaba in all the years it's been running, and they've done so amazing with it, each trying to outdo the last, trying to reach unimaginable high notes and sustaining high notes. It's incredible what they can do with it. Now, Glinda is one of the first things I actually fell in love with, and that's because Kristen Chenoweth actually originated the role on Broadway. She was fantastic in it. Popular is one of the songs that Kristen Chenoweth sang, and it was the reason I fell in love with Wicked. So I watched that, and I was just, this is freaking cool and so good. So that's the reason why I love it so much. The music, the actors that has portrayed the characters, and the characters are not just one-dimensional or two-dimensional. There's a fully rounded three-dimensional characters. We see a beginning and a middle and an end with their storylines, and I really think that's pretty great. Plus, it's just hella cool that she's green. Like, it centers around the villain actually showcasing not a villain, but actually just someone who's been misunderstood by a community. Kind of relates to me again. Now, one of them that I've fallen in love with is And Juliet, a pretty recent musical that came around, I think, in 2018 or 2019. It features the continuation of the story of Romeo and Juliet. Like, what if Juliet and Romeo didn't drink the poison? What would happen then? Because Juliet in this time is the lead, not Romeo. It's Juliet, hence the name. The soundtrack is beautiful. You can find it online, and you can find it on your streaming services. I found it on Apple Music, and I downloaded it, and I listened to it, and it was fantastic. Freaking loved it. So, the next one. So, let's move along. Let's move on with the show. Now, the next musical, it's recent as well. It's from 2018, and it's Mean Girls, the musical. It was actually this album that I listened to this weekend, and I fell in love with it. There's so many of the songs that are so fantastically written, and it centers around such a cultural phenomenon movie that we had during the beginnings of the 2000s, Mean Girls by Tina Fey. Now, I haven't watched it, but I have seen clips of it, and I've been loving them. They're so beautiful. And the songs especially, like World Burn, Apex Predator, some of the best songs out there I've listened to in later times. So freaking good. I love the people that they have gotten to portray these characters, both the original and now also the second generation of the characters. And the soundtrack, definitely worth a listen. If you don't, please do. Please listen to it. Now, Broadway musicals, they do something. There's a reason why Broadway is still so relevant as like a leisure activity for so many people, and why they still go to shows. It's because they create amazing storytelling that transports you into these amazing, incredible worlds where you can forget the world's trouble for a minute and you can just live in these places and kind of feel connected to the characters. So with that, I do want to ask you guys something. Which musicals do you guys love to watch? Leave it down in the comment section down below. I want to know. Like, do you have a favorite? And if you do, tell me about it. If I haven't seen it, I might just check it out. So with that, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up to this video and leave the comment down below, like I said earlier. So I want to say thank you one more time, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.